Radio Rahim with Adam Smith. You may not recognize where we are because you see a British man with 3 layers of clothes on. You can't imagine we're in the desert of Saudi Arabia. You see me, I don't even have a t-shirt. But I've just moved to London and I enjoy the cold. I moved there for the weather, but I weekend in Brixton.
Okay, weekend in Brixton. Yeah, Brixton's a cool place. I'm West London, I'm Acton, so, I love London. It's my home.
Nice. Well, this is becoming our second home.
Yep.
I moved over maybe to be closer to this because the biggest fights that are getting made in Saudi. And I can't believe really that the voice that we've all gotten so accustomed to for the massive fights has now become a part of this chorus of the big fights here in Saudi. So the rematch for you, you're so accustomed to being ringside for the most historic moments in boxing. Where does this line up? I mean, it's not undisputed anymore. So where does this line up on the historic chart?
It's right up there, and it's a fascinating one, and it's a huge fight with the 2 elite heavyweights of this era. You know, you take maybe Joshua as the poster boy and the man in many ways that changed boxing, but what Tyson Fury's done has been phenomenal, coming back from the state that he was in, world champion once upon a time, then 25 stone, and we never thought he'd get back in a ring, let alone become heavyweight champion. Now he's looking to become heavyweight champion on a 3rd occasion. It's a phenomenal story. And as for Oleksandr Usyk, he's just done everything and more that's been asked of him. 350 amateur fights, 22 professional fights, undisputed cruiserweight, heavyweight king, beating everybody, and seeing them go at it again. So yeah, look, it's a phenomenal one to be at. I'm very glad I'm back working with DAZN and really excited about it. It's it's been a long time coming. I've been ill for a year, and then I've been gently sort of coming back into it, and I'm delighted to have been asked to do this. And I absolutely love it, as you know. And it's there's nothing like a big fight, and this is a very big fight.
In legacy's respect, how important is this fight for Tyson Fury? I mean, he was undefeated until the last fight, being the first, but he's always claimed the lineal championship. He's always claimed to be the man who beat the man, and no one's beaten him. Well, now that is not true. But if he loses again, what does that do to his legacy?
I think, as I said, Tyson Fury will always be remembered, the Gypsy King who's done it all. The trilogy with Wilder was phenomenal. The getting up off the deck in that 12th round, a miracle. Just as I said, coming back from what he's been through has been quite astounding. So I think even if he loses on Saturday night, he will be long remembered as a great fighter. But I don't think it'll be over for Tyson Fury. If he loses, I think he fights Joshua. So that story will go on. As far as Usyk goes, he's already made his name in every way, shape or form, not just in the ring, but supporting his country and being such an ambassador, a role model for Ukraine at such a hard time for his nation. So, both of them are already there. But this is really for them. I think Tyson Fury has locked himself away. He's taken this really seriously because he's lost for the first time as a professional, and he knows what this means. It is about his own personal pride, I think. And for Usyk, it's another fight. He won last time. He expects to win again, and he wants to fight on. He told me in camp the other week that he wants to go on because he loves boxing, and when he finishes, he'll help kids and inspire the next generation. He's a very humble guy. He's very, very, very talented at what he does, even though he tells us it's 1% talent and 99% dedication. He works harder than anybody, and that's why he's so successful.
Well, as I've had to hear from British promoters and commentators for the last 10 years, that England is the new home of boxing and that the heavyweight championships belong to the British. And the only outlier was Deontay Wilder for the longest time. And now, even though you've got Fury, you have Joshua, it seems like Usyk was the dark horse all along. And if he beats Joshua twice, and if he beats Fury twice, is Usyk not the heavyweight of this era and eclipsed Joshua and Fury in that regard?
Yes, and he beat Daniel Dubois as well. And look what Dubois has gone on to do. I think that, yeah, beating Joshua twice, the first one I thought he was absolutely incredible at Tottenham. And beating Fury once, and then if he does it again, no doubt he's the heavyweight of this era. He's also one of the great heavyweights of all time. You've got to say that. And one of the great fighters of all time because of what he's done, coming up through the weights and being so successful in a very tough cruiserweight era, and then a very, very good heavyweight era. So, yeah, it's for Oleksandr Usyk, he wins this, and yeah, 23-0. It doesn't really matter about the numbers. It's just what he's done and achieved. And of course, he's done a lot of this away from home too, which has been astonishing as well. We've almost adopted him in Britain, haven't we? We all love Oleksandr Usyk. I mean, you can't not. He's absolutely brilliant for the sport. He's a maverick. He's a strange fella, but also a very funny guy, and a very humble guy. As I said earlier, he's a family man. And yeah, it was great having real quality time with him in Gandia. I love his odd socks. I just love his oddities. He's brilliant. He loves Conor McGregor. He does a great impression. And, yeah, he's fantastic. He's great, and he's just a wonderful ambassador for sport, let alone boxing. Usyk. So yeah, he'll be right up there.
Now, to your point, he has beaten Daniel Dubois, but he didn't take a belt off him like he's done Fury and Joshua. And now that Dubois is the IBF title holder, and arguably, but I think most people would agree, a much better fighter now than he was when he faced Usyk. Does Usyk need to become undisputed once more? Again, we're looking down the road. If he were to be able to be successful Saturday night, does he need another win over Dubois to really solidify that and also take England out of the running? Because that might be your last hope, Daniel Dubois, if Saturday doesn't go well.
No, I don't think he does need the Dubois rematch because he beat him first time around. Yes, there's always going to be the controversy of the low blow, but he won the fight. And ultimately, he's gone on and captured the undisputed heavyweight crown. So does he need to fight Dubois again? No, he'll tell you no as well. Would we see it? Of course we'd see it. So he wins on Saturday night. If he does, Dubois is an option, but there are others as well. I think if Fury loses on Saturday night, he fights Joshua next. That's the big fight of 2025. I think it's still the fight that all the British fans want to see in the casual sports market. And I think that if Fury wins, there's a trilogy. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a phenomenal 2025 come what may, but let's just enjoy this one. Saturday night is reignited. If it's not undisputed, it's most of the belts on the line. I think they've added another one, the Rumble in the Jungle 50-year anniversary. They'll probably find 3 or 4 more by the time it comes to Saturday. Chuck the Ring magazine in as well, of course, because they've got that. So, I don't know, there'll be a load of treasure for one of them to take home. And let's hope that it's a great fight again. It was a really good one last time. I think we worried that stylistically it wouldn't work. It did. I think this could be even better. And what a way to finish what's been a phenomenal 2024. But I tell you, Radio Rahim, 2025 has the potential of being the best boxing year I can remember. What a start with February the 22nd. That's the big one. There's also plenty of fights before that, actually. But Callum Simpson comes back January the 11th, and that starts the year off for us. But yeah, it's going to be amazing 2025 because the potential of some of these matches Turkey's putting on have been
the first card, as
and
you said.
Is Moses Atauma going to come through and fight for a world heavyweight title at the age of maybe 20?
That's a possibility, a strong one, in fact. And the way that this next year will kick off on February 22nd. I mean, I don't know that there is a stronger card I've ever seen. But before we get to the turn of the year, as you've mentioned, this Rumble in the Jungle, I just hosted the naming ceremony for the stadium in the Congo. They're rebuilding it, and they're naming it the Ali Foreman Stadium. So I just hosted that press conference, and George Foreman himself was there, and they'll be going to the Congo to have the naming ceremony. And then while I'm there, I'm hearing whispers of Klitschko wanting to come out of retirement and best Foreman's record. Do you think that he could accomplish that if that fight were to be against Dubois? I don't see him beating either one. I don't see him beating Dubois myself either, but obviously I think that's a more likely fight for him to get if he were to come out. Do you think it's a possibility that he could break George Foreman's record?
Anything's possible. we didn't like to see Mike Tyson the other week at nearly 60. Wladimir Klitschko keeps himself in terrific shape, but he is, approaching 50, and it's very, very old to fight. So would I like to see him back? Not sure. I think we had a wonderful time with both Klitschko brothers, and we don't need to see them back because they've been brilliant. Vitaly is the mayor of Kyiv now. He's got much more important things to concentrate on, and Vladimir, an incredible ambassador for the young. But Turkey's very persuasive, and if he says something and Vladimir might want it, I don't know. There's always the possibility of breaking records, and he's the sort of guy that may want to do that. I don't know. I haven't seen Vladimir lately. I know he was at the WBC convention the other day. I'd like to talk to him and see what he really thinks about it. Or Johnny Nelson, who I was just with, my best friend in boxing, still is. He was talking in his mid-40s about coming back to fight Marco Huck, and I had to tell him that he was going to get knocked out if he tried that, but he was like, no, and he started training for it, and I think he realised that maybe the hips and the knees weren't quite what they were. So, he's got to get through a training camp. That's the other thing, and fighters, call it a day for a reason, or they walk away, and I think Vladimir went at the right time, really, after the Joshua fight. So I'm not sure, but anything's possible in this world. And you're talking about Africa, let's not forget Martin Bakole, because Bakole is the one that no one seems to want to fight. He's the danger man, and he could definitely top a Riyadh season fight in Africa, because I know Turkey wants to go to the continent. So, it's going to be very exciting to see what happens. But as I said, there's lots of things that could unfold in 25 and 26. I think Turkey loves this sport, and I think he's here to stay.
I think, as you are referring to, the sport of boxing is a young man's game. And Klitschko coming back, trying to pull up the youngest of the champions, probably is a taller challenge. Maybe even...
I was in Gibraltar, Rahim, on Monday or Sunday. The days are jet lag and everything, but I was there for Dillian White's fight, and Dillian got the job done. But he's 36 now. These guys are getting on. Right. Joshua and Fury and Usyk. They're at the tail end of their careers, and Vladimir's a decade older.
But to my point, the youngest man of the lot, being Dubois, holding a title, could be on his way to claiming all of these belts one way or the other on his way up. And so what stands in his way on February 22nd, of course, is Joseph Parker, who is not an older fighter. He's 32, but has had a lot more tread on the tires and is on a winning streak. Where do you think these two meet when they clash? Is it the younger man who's on the roll, or is it a little bit more seasoned guy who's faced all the big names and has one more bite at the apple?
I really like that fight. I spent time with Daniel a few weeks ago when he got back from Brazil, and they were talking about Joe Parker as a possibility, and I wondered if they might take a softer defense. I think it's a really, really tough fight for Dubois and a really tough fight for Parker, and I think it's fantastic that both of them want to take this. Joe wanted the fight. It's surprising we haven't seen him in almost a year after his great wins over Wilder and Zhang, really getting momentum. He's put on a bit of bulk in the right place. He's strong, I think, now for that extra little bit of power. He's in great form with Andy Lee, and it's a fantastic fight. I'm glad that Dubois is taking the challenge, but then look at him against Miller, against Hrgovic, against Joshua. He was relentless and ruthless. He's been absolutely brilliant. He's 27. He's a young lion, and he could be the one that's there to stay. It just adds to the spice. You chuck a Talma in, who I think is the next great thing, and we've got a really spicy heavyweight division, even beyond the likes of the Fury, Usyks, and Joshua's. And what's happened to Deontay Wilder? He wants to fight again as well. So they all want it now because Turkey's making these fights happen and paying huge money.
Do you reckon that Wilder still has a future?
Look, I didn't like seeing Deontay in the last couple of fights. I'm very fond of Deontay Wilder and have been close to him through his career. And again, it's not up to us commentators to tell fighters when to walk away. It's not. It's up to them, and it's nothing to do with us, really. And you just don't want to see them go on too long.
Do you see anything in him that makes you think he can still win at the top tier?
I don't know. I'm not around him every day. He's always got the power, possibly the biggest single puncher since Ernie Shavers. Phenomenal right hand, but it only gets you certain. And he looked like he was a little bit, I don't know, just a bit circumspect against against the last couple of opponents. Zhang, and I just think I almost like didn't want to pull the trigger or couldn't, and maybe the legs weren't quite there. He didn't look right. He didn't look the same, and I don't know. Maybe it was an off night. Maybe he's back in training and back in the gym, and they see something different. But again, like Wilder, like Klitschko, it's the best days are surely behind them, and it's hard to see whether they can recapture that glory. But are there still fights to make? Would you still pay money for Joshua against Wilder? That never happened. Of course you would. So ultimately, but I care about boxers, and I don't like to see them go on too long.
Well, we definitely don't want to see him go on too long, but we want to see him go on Saturday night. And that is going to be a hell of a rematch. And you're not going to have a better voice ringside than Adam Smith. So it's a super treat to have you involved in any way in boxing, but certainly a chance for me to personally talk to you. That's an honor and a pleasure every time. Radio Rahim with Adam Smith.